Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. I hope you're warmer in your classrooms than we are here in the hall. It's good to be with you all again today. We remember that we meet in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Now today, we're going to think about St. Francis because this week in the church, we think about St. Francis. And we remember we used to, on our prayer table, we had a little statue of St. Francis. Those of you who have got really good eyesight will realise this isn't the one we had on the altar because, silly me, I broke part of it. So we have a new one of St. Francis with the animals and the bird. And we remember that St. Francis, he was a very, very rich young man. And he used to have lots of parties and do lots of different things. And then he had to fight in a war, and he realised that actually that fighting wasn't so good, and he realised that all his money and everything wasn't what he wanted. He actually wanted to do something for other people. So he gave away all his money and all his dad's money, and his dad wasn't very pleased, and he gave away all the cloth which his father had sold. And he became a friar, like a monk. He set up his own group of friends to work with him and to be there for people who hadn't got much money and to help lots of people. And he would wander all around the countryside in Italy. And this was about 950 years ago. And he would go from town to town talking to people about God's love. One day, he came to a town called Gubbio. That's a funny name, isn't it? Called Gubbio. And the people there, they didn't want to listen to him because they were all so scared. And they were really scared. And their knees were shaking and they didn't know what to do. And Francis said to them, "Why are you so scared?" And they said, well, there's this big wolf who keeps coming and scaring us from the forest. And Francis said, "Don't worry. I will go and talk to the wolf." So he and some of the villagers went out into the wood, and then they heard a big growling noise. And all the villagers ran back home, which left Francis by himself. But he kept going into the wood, and before long, Francis, you sit there for a minute. Before long, out came the fierce wolf, and the wolf went "Rah!" And Francis stayed where he was, and he said, "Brother Wolf, don't be like that. You scared all the people, all the boys and girls and the men and women and all their animals. That's not a very nice thing to do, is it?" And the wolf bent down and shook his head and said, "No, I suppose that wasn't very nice." And Francis said to him, "I want you to agree to be friends with all the villagers, and I'll get them to be friends with you. Do you agree to that?" And the wolf held out his paw, and Francis, I'm not very good at this, shook his paw, and they agreed. But Francis had been gone a long, long time, and the villagers thought, the wolf must have eaten him. But then suddenly Francis came out of the wood with the wolf, and he said to all the villagers, "The wolf has promised not to scare you anymore if you promise to give him some food and not to throw sticks and stones at him. Do you agree to that?" And the villagers said, yes, they agreed to that. And he said to the wolf, "Do you agree to that?" And the wolf said, "Yes, I agree to that." And he held out his paw again, and they agreed to live together peacefully. And from that day on, the wolf would walk through the streets of the town, people would give him scraps of food, and he would be kind to them, and the children would come and stroke him, because they had learnt from Francis that everything is important, and all the animals and the birds and people, everybody, everything is loved by God and special to God. And so they were all happy again, and they lived peacefully together because they realised that was the thing to do. That's what makes people to be living okay, because they're all helping each other. And that's what we try to do at Hill House, isn't it? We're there for everybody, for each other, and we're there too for the birds in the sky and the animals that we see day by day. Next week, I'm going up to Yorkshire, and I hope I'll see some birds, and I can tell you about those. The puffins will have gone out to sea, but hopefully I'll see something else. So let's say the prayer of St. Francis, and then we can say the Lord's Prayer together. Oh dear, I've dropped Francis on the floor. Sorry, Francis, that wasn't very kind. The prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy.